Hi, I'm Laurie Davidson, and we're here today with Donate for Refugees, presenting Voices from Athens, featuring CRIBS International. Sally Hyman and Daphne Sinani are here with us. Daphne's in Athens, Sally's in the UK, where she lives and runs CRIBS. Sally, can you tell us briefly what CRIBS does?
Hi, everybody. Thank you to Laurie for doing the interviewing and for Daphne for giving up her Sunday afternoon. So CRIBS is a small charity based in the UK and working in Greece. So when I say based, I mean like financially based in the UK. But it's been working in Athens and other parts of Greece since 2016. And what we do is we provide a front door and a kitchen and a bathroom and somewhere to sleep, let's say, for women who are pregnant or who have a baby under 12 months officially. But as you'll hear in the discussion coming up, that's not as easy as it used to be. So that's what we do. We provide somewhere safe for people to live, and that's the basis. We also have a free shop, a community hub that's opening up. We have 3 brilliant team members in Athens. Daphne is one of them, and then there's 2 others as well. We have a free shop manager and somebody who does all our nitty gritty, gets rid of the mold, that sort of stuff.
Oh, good. Daphne, do you want to add to that? Daphne is a psychologist who works directly in Athens with the people that CRIBS serves. And especially I was thinking about how part of all of this is planning for when people are no longer being housed by CRIBS and how important that is.
Well, the additional sort of part, apart from providing a front door and a house, somewhere to be safe at this very vulnerable time of a woman's life, during pregnancy, last months of pregnancy, during labor, and after that, we also try to make as much use we can of this time to help these women towards independence and integration. So we do try to give them some abilities, some skills, or enhance some skills and empower them so they can move on after CRIBS, which is proving harder and harder.
We'll get to that in just a bit. Sally, can you tell us how many mothers and babies have you served since you founded CRIBS back in 2016?
So officially, we've housed 54 families for quite lengthy periods, so for 18 months and longer in some situations. To say how many we've actually helped in total, I don't know, because we help people with signposting, we help people with small grants just to put them in a hotel for a couple of nights. We might give somebody a food drop. I don't know, but it's into the thousands if we include the free shop.
Mm-hmm. And how many mothers and babies and families do you have in flats right now in Athens?
So right now there's 19 families in CRIBS accommodation, and we have a couple of people who are kind of outliers who provide their own housing and we pay for it, but we don't manage the state of where they're living. So it's a good number, and I think we're all proud if we're doing.
Yeah, it's really amazing what you've been able to accomplish since you started this just a few years ago. I understand there have been some changes in the makeup of the families and the mothers that have implications for how you serve them. Can you say a little bit about that? And then Daphne will probably want to weigh in as well.
Yeah, so before I answer this question, I'm going to put a trigger warning. Because I'm going to be talking about rape. So if that's something that, if you're listening, that you don't want to hear about, then bye and thank you. But that's what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah. So the first families that we housed were Afghan and Syrian. They were mum and dad families. Generally, they were able to sort of function as a unit. more than the families that we have now. As far as we were aware, most of the mothers hadn't experienced rape or forced sex work because they were a family unit. Now, most of our families are single mums, and whilst we don't know exactly how many have been through that, because not everybody wants to tell us, and that's totally their privilege and right, there are some families that do tell us the situations that they've been through, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe
Daphne, there's some, sorry, Sal.
No, Daphne, I'm going to say this is Daphne's strength area.
Yeah, there's some obvious implications for mental health and overall functioning, Daphne, right?
Of course there are. I mean, it's true that we have, I'd say the majority of the women that we house right now have been in one way or another victims of gender-based violence or of trafficking. And unfortunately, that often comes with a pregnancy. So even the babies that we host at the moment were not planned. I'm not going to say not wanted because they are. They
But it's
are,
challenging.
because they are, which is it's amazing. I mean, that's just a small parenthesis, but it's amazing how strong and resilient these women are, and how they become sort of the lioness, you know, where it's them and their baby, and but it does create issues, as you can imagine. Because all of a sudden it's a huge change in life. It's there's a trigger that's always there that reminds of trauma. Many implications. So it is a hard time, and as you can imagine, you know, with that combined with the normal hormones and all this vulnerability that comes along with pregnancy and labor, it's difficult. It's definitely difficult times.
Yeah. And although the situation for refugees in Greece hasn't gotten any better, in fact, in some ways has continually worsened since you started CRIBS, today we want to talk about the most recent development, one of the most recent developments, which is eliminating cash cards. And that's putting CRIBS and its ability to help mothers and babies in a bit of a bind. Sally, do you want to start off by telling us about that? And
recently a quiet government announcement said that any families not housed officially by the government or in organizations approved by the government in Greece would lose their cash cards. And many families are relying completely on their cash cards to pay rent and to buy food. So as of the 1st of July, those families are going to have no income. And the upshot of that is going to be that by August, when they haven't been able to pay the rent in July, August, which is the hot month and the quiet month in the cities, is people are going to be on the street. And obviously, for our family, we'll be raising the money, but for our families, 50% were on cash cards, and now we have to find, I think it's 1,500 euros a month extra. I think that's about right. Just for people to eat.
Yeah, Sally, so I just want to clarify that your families don't pay rent, correct? Right. So you were speaking to families in Athens in general, refugee families in general.
Yes. Yeah.
But nevertheless, your families receive cash cards, and that pays for food, household expenses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, no, it's for food and cleaning stuff, that sort of thing. So for our families, the ones who don't have a cash card even now, we give them money for food and for other things, and we support them with medicines and so on. But for the ones that do have a cash card, they're going to lose it, because CRIBS is not for want of trying, believe me, but CRIBS is not officially registered in Greece. We have been trying for over 2 years to register, and the situation to register is so complex that it's not impossible, but it's really, really difficult.
Well, it's made difficult.
deliberately.
Perhaps.
So.
Yeah. So you're going to have to make up for the loss in order for the families who are currently with CRIBS to eat, basically.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how one of the key things CRIBS does is to help families to move on past CRIBS and to plan for that. And Daphne talked about empowerment. This has an impact on your ability to do that as well, doesn't it? Daphne, you want to?
Of course it does. And I mean, in general, I'm going to just briefly say that in general, for all refugees at the moment, the cash card cutoffs means a step backwards towards being dependent, because a cash card, that minimum amount of money that they had gave them some control over their life and pushed them to make some planning for the future. Now the government is saying that whoever is staying with us in approved accommodation, we're going to provide everything for you. You will have no money, no control. We give you what food you eat, what you wear, what everything, and that's it. Otherwise, you're on your own with no money at all. And it's the same thing with the CRIBS families, because we do try, even the families that don't have a cash card so far, we give them a certain amount of money, which they can deal with. They can choose what food they get and everything. It's just a help to cover the basic needs, because once you have covered your basic needs, once you have a roof above your head and you have something to eat, then you can start thinking of your future. Then you can start planning. Even the simplest thing like going to a language class and learn some Greek, you need a full stomach to do that. You cannot concentrate otherwise. Your memory cannot work otherwise. So that's the most basic thing, but it also gives them some control. I have this tiny amount, because we're talking about ridiculous amounts of money. This tiny amount gives them some sense of power, that they have some control over their life and they can plan for the future.
Yes. And Sally, there are some good examples of families who, once they've left CRIBS, have with the ability to get cash on the cash card and the other skills and help that you've given them, examples of families who've really been able to make a go of it after CRIBS.
Yeah, so we've I'm not going to mention any names for obvious reasons, but
of course not.
We have a family who moved into their own accommodation. The father speaks very, very good English, and he got a job with an international car company. They've had another baby, and so they are more they're living a more normal life. And that's great. We have another family who were they've actually chosen to leave Greece, but had a good period of working for other NGOs and were paying their own rent and got their kids into school, daughter into kindergarten, and that they were doing the sorts of things that everybody should be able to do to educate their kids, for their kids to play. Their kids to study, their kids to just live life like our kids are able to do. And I think, like Daphne was saying, that this cutting of the cash cards is going to stop all that. Absolutely stop it. I mean, one of the themes that I've experienced going from 2016 onwards is that whenever I've been in Greece, no matter how tough things are for a family, they will make a meal for you. It might be a very simple meal, but it's a meal. And to be able to share food that somebody, to be a guest when you're actually supporting that person, but to be their guest means a huge amount. It's really important. And those sorts of things are just going to stop.
Yeah.
And can I just grab something that you mentioned, Sally, and the fact that there are families exactly that have either done their planning or moved on and have made some basic steps of integration. Enrolling the kids into Greek public school is a major one. They also might have some medical services they're using in a specific place, or legal services and all that. So now what's happening is that, if they cannot be supported by CRIBS or another similar NGO, what they're either on the street, so out of all that as well, or they will be forced to apply for some accommodation in some random new camp in the middle of nowhere in Greek countryside, away from the urban setting, away from their community that they're already members of, and they're trying to be active and integrate into. So that's where CRIBS comes from. So that's why we need to keep our families, because that's a major reason also, because it will all go to waste. They will just go backwards, back to being dependent and marginalized. While now they're becoming active members of a community. And that's what it should all be about, integration, no? Yeah, otherwise.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's worth adding, Daphne and Laurie, I think it's worth adding that in Greece now, the government are deliberately closing the camps near the city and building walls around the ones that are further out. So they're going, people, it's going to be even harder, if not, it's going to be impossible for people to integrate. Let's be realistic. They're going to be in closed camps where they're using thermal imaging cameras to stop people going in and out.
Yeah, concrete walls and razor wire. Even camps that were open, still a bit of a walk or a taxi ride from a town. Now there's no coming and going unless the authorities allow it. Yeah. So Daphne, it's a step back psychologically for people. Also, did you want to say more about that? Or
it's a step back psychologically, but also practically. I mean, we don't, even families that have moved on, for example, from CRIBS, we don't know what's going to happen now, because some of them relied on their cash card to pay, if not the entire rent, part of the bills, while trying to find other things, to add to their income. So we don't know what's going to happen then. But even for the families that we do have at CRIBS at the moment, apart from what Sally said, that at the moment we need to find more funding to cover the expenses, the basic expenses of those families, we will need to change our planning also and how we move on families, because it will then be impossible to rely even on that tiny amount of money from the cash card. So we can only basically move on families who manage to make an income, to find a job. And that also, in Greece, post-COVID, is a very, very difficult thing.
And the knock-on effect of that is that we've got lists. Or actually, we don't keep a waiting list, but we know that there are loads and loads and loads of women out there who are sleeping on the street, who are sleeping in dangerous accommodation, who are having sex to keep a roof over their heads. We know that those women are there. If we can't move families on with older kids, then we can't take these families in. So
exactly,
everybody is suffering, and it's political. It's a political action that's causing this.
That has human repercussions.
Oh, huge human consequences, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a violation of human rights as well, but I'm sure I will let some lawyers deal with that. I know there are certain ones that thankfully are thinking of doing something about it, because it's true, it's violating every European policy on human rights, So
and it's backed up by the EU. I mean, the walls that are being built around the camps are paid for by the EU. So if you're listening to this in the EU, as I'm not, sadly, Brexit, lovely, this is your government is agreeing to imprison refugees. I mean, the camps that are being altered right now are basically being turned into concentration camps. Might be a bit extreme, but you know what I mean.
I do know they are, but they are camps. In some cases, more like jails.
Yeah.
As we approach the 5 minutes left to go mark, and before I sort of ask you how can people who are listening to us today help? Are there any last things you want to say about CRIBS? Or I think there was one thing that I don't know that you mentioned that and if you did, I'm sorry for being redundant, but that even families who have left CRIBS, who have gone out, are coming back to you in a bit of a bind themselves. You spoke to that. Yeah.
Well, we're already receiving panicking messages. I can tell you that. So yes, I expect families to come back once money runs out.
Yeah.
And yes, we will need to find ways to cover for that as well, but also a whole new way of helping them, because it's not just providing them food. Now we've got even more. We have a very short amount of time in which we need to provide them with skills to be able to make their own living independently, autonomously, and that's going to be hard. We need
I wonder if that's even, this is not part of what we prepped to talk about, but is that realistic now with this situation? I know you guys haven't had a lot of time to think about what to do instead.
I think Sally kind of mentioned it before, which was what we started to say, that our initial goal, which is to house families up until their babies are 12 months old, so a year old, will have to be more and more flexible. But that also means that we will have less ability to house new families. So,
and I know that's been a frustration for the entire 5 years, not being able to do more. And yet I just want to say for the audience that the level, how impressed and grateful I am for what CRIBS has done these 5 years in going from having a couple of flats and a few families to where Sally now has 19 flats, and the incredible staff that you've been able, both volunteers and people making tiny little bits of money, who have done this amazing job. And I know how heartbreaking it is not to be able to do more, and this just makes it even more heartbreaking for you guys, I know. But you always come up with solutions, and I know you will. How can people who are listening, and that's a good segue into how can people who are listening to you help you with this next new challenge to overcome?
Okay, here's the ask, folks. So I made some notes about this. I got 3 words. I got donate, educate, and volunteer. So donate. If you can afford to donate to CRIBS, please do, because it's the difference between somebody being involved in forced sex work, between somebody losing their child into the Greek system because they aren't allowed to leave the hospital if they're homeless with their baby gets kept. It's the difference between being able to feed your family or having to accept food from Solidarity Kitchens. That's the massive difference it makes. So if you can personally afford to donate, please do. I'm sure Amber, who's listening in the background, will make sure that there's a link to our work at the end of this. If you personally can't afford to donate, but you've got some organizational skills and wanted to organize a fundraiser, do that. Like anything that raises money. People ask me, what will I do to raise money? And I say basically anything except take my clothes off, because that wouldn't raise any money. You might pay me to keep them on, but anything, like make jam, have a gig, post-COVID, have a gig, online quizzes. I mean, anything that you want to do, just if we have money, we can help. The other thing is, if you've listened to this and you understand a bit more about the situation in Greece, then tell people what the hell's going on. It's off the radar. People don't know. The awful media in the UK hide this stuff and are saying, oh, go to Greece for your holidays. You're going to a country that is oppressing refugees and poor Greek people too, and lying to them. Did I say that? I did. It's true. And the other thing is to volunteer. So I know tomorrow in our weekly meeting we're going to talk about volunteering, and obviously with COVID it's tricky, but you don't have to volunteer in Greece. You can volunteer from home. CRIBS is currently looking for some new trustees, particularly around governance and fundraising, but anybody who's quite happy to sit at a computer and write stuff and talk and make decisions. And yeah, so those are the things that I would ask of you. Donate if you can, organize a fundraiser if you can, educate other people, educate yourself, and volunteer. Either, I mean, we will be accepting some volunteers in Greece, but only experienced volunteers because of the situation and because of the vulnerability of our families. Then we don't accept green volunteers. It's too complicated. It's too difficult for you.
Okay.
We can't afford it. We don't have the time.
We're a bit over time even. So thank you, everyone. I guess Amber will now end the session.
Oh,
thanks
Amber.
Thank you.